I want to start with an opening remark and something that's critical. I wrote a book in 2004 in Australia that was stopped by the authorities with 66 court orders. 66 court orders to stop my book. I was exposing what the governments was doing with WEF and what they're doing right now in the 230 plan. And they didn't want people to know. So therefore they came into prison when I was in prison for 10 years. And I wrote my book in prison. In 2004 they came in, shut the whole prison down, went right through my cage, which has never happened in a jail system in history. They never come inside jail. They arrest you at the front in a special meeting room, but they do not come inside prison. They came in and shut every unit down, shut my unit down, a 50-man unit, put everyone in the yard, raided my cell and raided every other unit in the unit, every other cell in the unit, to see if there's any other copies of my book. The book was sent to 4 companies and they were stopped and they were abducted by the police with warrants. Copies of my book went to my family and my mother. They went out there with warrants to get every single copy. They made sure they had every single copy. Okay. Also, when I typed it up on the computers in the computer room, we can't get on the internet, but we get a UBS to put it on. They took the whole drive, they took the whole lot. They wanted to make sure the book never got printed and put court orders on 4 companies never to print this book in Australia. 4 companies were very interested, and one wanted to make a film and wanted rights to make a film about it immediately. But those rights were taken away by the CMC, Crime and Misconduct Commission, which is part of the Queensland Crime Commission, Australian Crime Commission. The Australian Crime Commission and National Crime Authority, they run the hub, headquarters of NCA and CIA, the hub in Australia. Edward Snowden tells you this. He's blown the whistle about this and many things. And Julian Assange got locked up in England for blowing a lot of the documents that Anonymous got in Australia from the hub about mind control and the world being under mind control for 100 years, since 1920. Those documents were exposed in 1997. And it went right into the biggest scholars in the whole world, and also the IPPC report, 16,000 top scholars in the world. They declared that the world's crazy in 1999 worldwide in the IPP science reports. Okay? The IPP science reports was declared your parents are crazy and the world is crazy. Okay? And mental disorders are going through the roof, and we're being stripped in the 6th sense for the 6th time in the 6th mass extinction. That's causing mental disorders and defects going through the roof. And it's at 38% from 2% in 1960. Now it's 98%. Anti-clockwise involved in our DNA, because in 2003 we declared a species in denial. The 2 most powerful declarations worldwide that we're in a massive global delusional state with defected genes, and 600 to 6,000 defected genes, which means we're defected, we're anti-clockwise in mentality, and we suffer more mental disorders and defects than ever in history in turbocharge rate, with cancer, blood clots, myocarditis, and every single thing we die from prematurely. And now 77% of Western's children, as Robert Kennedy says, in FDA and the World Transformation Movement worldwide, is now born with chronic diseases, with hereditary genes, because their mum and dad are crazy and a species in denial. Declared worldwide, warned in Revelation, that they're in a delusional state worldwide with amnesia, trapped in a reincarnation trap and do not know what they do. Evolution, mutation, artificial intelligence and grammar on anti-clockwise by atheism, into a conscious singularity by WF and the Rockefeller setting people up like this, into the mind. Consciousness is only a middleman of impression, illusion, imagination, and everyone's living in it, in their mind, in mentality, in their consciousness, and nominate themselves, not in spirituality. They now believe in the Christ consciousness mentality, right? That sounds heavenly, but not spirituality. They haven't got mental telepathy, as people promote you, telekinesis, levitation, spoon bending, clock winding, folding space and time with deja vu, and can predict the future and prevent what's going to happen. That's why they stopped my book. They knew in the looking glass of 227. They knew the future of 227 in the looking glass since the 60s. They came out with a document back then and said we're anti-clockwise. Every child's a genius, can use 100% of his brain with all these abilities, clockwise in his aura, right from 0 to 7. Then he goes to school to become anti-clockwise into his mind with mental institutionalization. Then he suffers a human condition and dies prematurely from stress-related diseases. And that was declared in 1960. They went into the biggest study and became a global concern in 1973 when every prediction was correct. Nobody listened. Became a massive global concern by 1999 when we were under mind control. With all the documents exposed when we hacked the hub. Okay, that's why Dealey and Hassan got locked up. I was the biggest mastermind in the underground world in the Gatekeeper report, in the Star Chamber inquiry. In 1999, got locked up for 10 years. My rescuing officer commends me and retires the police force. So did many others when we unearthed and created the most powerful truth serum in the world. Most powerful enlightenment drug to prove you're under mind control. You can see in the movie Limitless. To use 100% of your brain. So the mind can't work it out, can it? Well, we can do it with a drug called bread manna that Christ has mostly used from a plant called mayang. And when we bring people back in the primal state, it brought down the highest death time ever can of in 30 years. And it's never been seen before. As we stop gang killing and violence and mass violence to the lowest statistic in 30 years, in 4 years from 1996 to 2000. And my product was in every testing centre across Australia that went in the biggest mental health research and DNA study ever done, where people go back in the primal state. That caused the Royal Commission paying out for 23 years in the stolen declaration of poverty, paying out $250 billion today, and the biggest mental health research ever conducted in global history. Because some people are listening. Like Jeremy McGivers, with DNA studies done, who found the cure of the human condition that's going to save humanity, that we can all do what Christ can more in our DNA. So therefore our body starts a corruption, collusion on anti-clockwise. And that's why I'm telling you right now, I'm the biggest mastermind in the whole world in the Gatekeeper report that unearthed everything the system's set up by. With corruption, coercion, collusion in your body cells the minute you go to school. Listen to what I'm saying to you. 0 to 7, you're clockwise, perfect in your aura. The minute you go to school, you go anti-clockwise in your aura. So you go in a death spiral and die prematurely. Because your body cells going corruption, collusion, and your body cells going corruption, coercion, collusion the minute you go to school for a transformation for 7 years. By the time you're 14, your sacred secretion dies. Your 2 molecules of mortality, genetic repair kit that a child has that's perfect at the age of 5. He can go clockwise and we can do a DNA transfer from a child into an adult and he can preserve because he's clockwise. He has a genetic memory and a genetic process with genetic molecules, 130 genetic molecules, a genetic repair kit with 2 molecules of mortality. So he knows how to preserve DNA and preserve life in a time where time still life preserves. And he comes into the world that way. Okay, clockwise. Where he has all the abilities to mastermind a computer game between 3 and 7 and respond 7 times faster than an adult with the highest IQ people in the world. They can only use up to 15% of their brain. Majority can only use 10%. A child can use 100%. Recorded by NASA back in the 60s. When they knew in the 60s how to think instinctively outside the mind with your natural abilities and a natural selection and your natural order in life with genetic memory. And the last human being born on earth that can do that was born in 1960. And it's clear with DNA studies done, I'm the last one in the Gatekeeper report with God-like power that can do what Christ can and more in the biggest study ever done. And it's not a joke. It's genuine. I'm primordial being number 1 worldwide with divine intervention and miracles and hospitals with DNA studies done. And it's not a joke. I've been dead 3 times and brought someone back to life 3 times with peer reports, CCTV, and the most powerful program in 2003, the one and only, that can do that. And it's not a joke. It's genuine. I'm the only one of the kind that can do that. And my DNA goes in the bigger research in 2008, in the biggest study ever done. The most powerful God-like power in the Star Chamber by the biggest thing on 7 reports. Nobody else like me. I unraveled the whole system of the UN NATO under law and order structure with chaos, where I can prove to you and unravel the whole system as a mastermind of loopholes of laws and manipulation on the front page of paper in 1992 and 17 current affairs shows. 17 current affairs shows. On the front page on the 18th of January 2001, I'm standing the front page paper with the guns that disarm Australia from the Martin Bryan plan the taxpayers paid for. So I have the guns and the 2 top scientists from NASA and reverse Hitler's plan that Harari's creating with unnatural selection and replacing with intelligent design. We stop Hitler's plan Harari talks about, and we had the documents under mind control under the consciousness singularity set up by the Rockefellers, and it's a soul trap, the biggest soul trap in human history. People trapped in their mind and cannot use their natural abilities, and they can't wake up from amnesia and the reincarnation trap, most of beyond the point of return, declared worldwide by geographers and the top scholars in the whole world because they're species in denial. Okay, the world is crazy, your parents are crazy, and people are trapped inside the mind and personality in mentality. And they do not know what they do. They can only 7 to 15% of their brain. Only 7 to 15% of their brain. When a mastermind can use 100%, he controls his business from the outside in, not the inside out like Keanu Reeves in the Matrix documentary, Resurrection. When he crosses over, he's resurrected and controls his business from the outside in. And he can do what Christ can and more. In his own biological genes, with his natural selection life, with his natural abilities. It's coded in his own DNA with genetic memory and a genetic process with his ancestry tools in every DNA in the whole world. But when you live in the 23rd seed, the seed of the dragon, you're artificial into the mind in mentality, reptilian mentality. And that's what you live in, 95 to 99% of the time. You can only think instinctively 1 to 5%, 3 hours at night time. That's the only time your aura is perfect, clockwise. The rest of the day it's in corruption, corrosion, and in the daytime, and it's everything you suffer from, everything you die prematurely from, in the greatest delusional state ever recorded in global history. The most powerful delusional state ever recorded in human history, in biological evidence and DNA studies done. Everyone is in denial about it. Well, that's why Julian Assange got locked up, and that's why Edward Snowden sits in Russia, and that's why I went to jail for 10 years, okay, for corruption. And Chief Justice Jersey, the biggest judge on the bench in Australia in 2010, declared my cases the most corrupt cases in Australian history in every university, under the House of Lords, under the Natural Justice Act. So it prevails every UN law. That's my point. The corruption in my case is 8 cases, and I'm unlawfully deported, and 3 lots of lawyers are threatened so I can't get to court with a BF transfusion cancer that I don't have. The person who deported me is Peter Dunn, in order to step down in 2010, and rips down Chief Justice Jersey. Tony Abbott, the Prime Minister, that has many UNCs and government authorities and pinboys, and all the government workers, and there were 80% positive to meth. Right, exposed worldwide that every person in the world is on meth or amphetamine with a barcode system, electronic magnetic device, and the vaccination, the same particle from graphene oxide that comes from iodine crystal, also improved preservatives. That's under the secret covenant by the Rockefellers, who's a fallen angel, who's not trapped in the amnesia with the reincarnation trap like Bill Gates, at 24, the biggest mastermind in the world, and the richest man in the world by 24, and couldn't even read and write, right? Never educated. Couldn't even read and write, but it's a mastermind, right? Not trapped in the reincarnation trap with amnesia. And they know what they're doing. They're running the world. And I know what they're doing too, because I'm not trapped in a reincarnation trap neither. I'm a mastermind in my own mind, and the most powerful mastermind in their documents, and the most complicated situation they've ever faced in their life. In 7 powerful reports by the biggest think tank in the world, I can do things they can't do, and they can't work out with deja vu and predict the future, prevent what's going to happen with remote viewing, mental telepathy and ESP, the most powerful godlike power, and they can't deal with me, not at all. But I've never committed a violent offence. I saved humanity and brought them back in the primal state from 1996 to 2000. Okay, we had the highest mental disorders and defects, right? Drug killing, gang killing, drug deaths, suicide rates, and domestic violence in 1996 to the lowest in 30 years by 2000, 4 years later. Right across the nation with my product, the most powerful 2 serum and enlightenment drug in the world that brought people back in the primal state, that caused the biggest mental health research across Australia with DNA studies done, where they found the cure of the human conditioning, where we can do what Christ can and more, in the biggest study ever done, with the most powerful confirmation on earth. The crossover, the great resurrection of humanity, the book Freedom by Jeff McGillis, held by 16,000 top scholars in the world and Nobel Prize winners, right? The Holy Grail of Life. With When I Breathe the Program, the Holy Breath of Life. He's won a Nobel Prize without a credential, with 27 world records for superhuman abilities, and 27 times more powerful immune system, and 27 is a powerful sign. I tell you that every day for a reason. Watch these videos are made here. Understand who I am, where I come from, and the mark on earth I left here. And the book that unfolds Philippians perfectly, that they stopped in 2004 with 66 court orders, and why they try to stop it. I had to revise this book. But I'm telling you, these 10 videos has the information that no one in the world is telling you. The world's under mind control, and has been for 100 years. And they don't believe in it. They're a species in denial. Right? They live in denial, and they do what they're told. They go to work and pay the bills, and they all have a breaking point. COVID vaccination mandate proved that over 98.7% will do what they're told. The military is sitting and making 100% per kill today. It's only 16% in 1920. 48% in 1944, 68% in 1968, 100% today. What does that tell you? Mind control, right? Because you're controlled by stress, fear, and anxiety in your body cells. They're going corruption, collusion during the daytime. And that, my friend, is treasoning. Right there. Because you and the NATO, with the Rockefellers, with chaos, put your body cells in chaos the minute you go to school with corruption, coercion, collusion. Because the mentality we're in is with corruption, coercion, collusion for treasoning. So the whole government and UN and NATO is under treasoning. When you talk about exposure and disclosure and whistleblowers, this is the one thing people can't handle and can't wake up from: amnesia and the reincarnation trap. And they don't know what they're doing in their mind because they're trapped inside their mind and personality with their own mentality and don't believe in nothing but themselves. And listen to the voice mind and come to their own conclusion with reasoning, which is nefarious. It's 5 cents and negative fears in consciousness singularity, right? Mentality. It's not spirituality. That's why none of these species can use their third eye with their sixth sense to see the picture that tells them 1,000 words through a portal and a vision for dimensional thinking, to see into the future, see into the past with deja vu, right? Okay, mental telepathy and ESP, and feel the truth. You feel the truth with ESP. You feel the truth. You don't think about it. You think outside the mind. With codependent power, a relationship when you're selfless, and you're innocent, when you're in your primordial state and not trapped in your vessel in a human experience, in mentality, in a personality, trapped in your mind with amnesia, trapped in a reincarnation trap and keep coming back like an idiot and do not know what you do, but you think you do, but you don't. You can only use 10% of your brain. Highest IQ only 15%, so you don't know what you're doing when you're brainwashed, but with 85 to 93% of your brain, because it's not working. Only 7 to 15% is, which means you're an actor for someone else and do what you're told. With a voice mind that tells you to do that, that's been declared ultimately designed for extinction by Jeremy Givers and 16,000 top scholars and 45,000 teachers worldwide. We are listening to the wrong voice of mind. Ultimately designed for extinction, and it's a hostile entity because it's only a personality, and it'll tell you whatever you want to hear. Like Christ's consciousness, that sounds heavenly, it's only a personality. Christ's consciousness, that sounds heavenly, it's only a personality. The consciousness is unaware of the outside influence that controls your reality and limits you so much because it's mentality. Consciousness and mentality set by the Rockefellers into the conscious singularity. It's mentality. You're in a soul trap. That's why your spirituality doesn't work. And your 24th chromosome in dormancy and 27 biofields. Your divine power to command nature is your biofields, your 27 fields. You have 32 senses. 27 don't work. And when they don't work, they don't work. Nor does 85% of your brain. Nor is your 24th chromosome in dormancy that gives you godlike power, supernatural power, superhuman abilities that do what I can and more. And we cross you over back in your primordial state with natural selection and natural order in life, with your natural gynecomasticus, with your genetic memory, right? With your own ancestral tools coded in your own DNA. It's in your DNA. It's your mind that's a problem. You become your own worst enemy. It plays tricks and games in you. You become your own prison, your own warden in your mind. You don't even realize that. Trust me, when you cross over, you'll learn that from 10% to 100%, with the biggest clarification you've had in your life. Freedom, the liberation beyond the mind. So far beyond the mind has no comprehension and no understanding, and the mind does not know what you're doing. That's why Christ said the mind doesn't know what you're doing. That's why everyone's suffering mental disorder, defects, stress, fear, anxiety, confusion, frustration, delusion, paranoia in 98.7%, because their body cells is anti-clockwise into corruption, corrosion during the daytime. It can only be at night time for 3.5 hours, except for 1.3% that's crossed over through winter breathing and the book Freedom by Jeremy Givers. Right? They're the only people that's crossed over and gone through the rebirth and resurrection back in their primordial state, in the celestial primordial state, and control the business from the outside in, not the inside out, not trapped in the mind with their own ego. That traps them in their own mentality and a speech in denial. They do not know what they do in their mind. And they don't learn that and know that till they cross over through a 40-day fast and we're not breathing program to recreate the sacred secretion, the whole bit of life, and restructure your biological system, right? With your Neuralink, your tree of life, and all your sacred secretion to conduct with the book Freedom that takes you through rabbit hole, the Holy Grail of life and the Holy Grail of life with the Holy Breath of life. And I come with the resurrection of humanity as the most powerful confirmation on earth with the most powerful documents to back it up in DNA studies done. I'm one of a kind. You can have more faith in me than anyone else because you can have faith in my DNA that's leading society into the cure of every single thing you suffer. One drop of my DNA. I'm the most authentic human being on earth according to the DNA. The most authentic, righteous human being on earth making the right decisions and gone through a transformation to make sure I've got it right. So I know. And you don't know what I do until you cross over. And then you'll know with the most powerful confirmation and the most powerful clarification. You can't get wrong. You're under mind control. Okay? And it's a species in denial worldwide declared 2003. Everyone's living in their mind, in their own perception, their own narrative. And all they care about is themselves and their own opinions worldwide. And all their book smart education has been declared. Everything for science, for ADHD, psychosis, schizophrenia, and bipolar is only an opinion. Because we can cure every single thing they suffer from by crossing over, by natural selection and natural order in life with a natural ability. So therefore they don't need prana, right? Because every single thing in the mind is inside the skull, in the mind. Everything you die from prematurely and everything you suffer from is in the mind, in the skull. It's a personality. And you have more faith in yourself, personality, into yourself. You don't realize what you're doing, but you think you do at the same time. The voices in your mind are ultimately deciding extinction. They'll tell you do it, and don't do it, and give you 5 reasons why you should and why you shouldn't. And when you keep thinking critically, you do what you're told because they tell you what to do. And you're controlled by stress, fear, and anxiety in your body cells, in corruption, corrosion during the daytime, and can only be at night time for 3.5 hours a night. In 98.7%, and every Westerner, they listen to a screen all day, trapped inside their mind with their 5 sense world, and cannot think instinctively outside the mind, as they tell you in the Matrix documentary 26 years ago. Declared a species in denial in 2003. Because you all live in denial. And when you live in denial, you do not know what you're doing, no matter what you say, no matter what you think. Because we crossed you over back in your primal state and proved it, right, with DNA studies done in 1994, in the biggest documents ever developed in human history, in the Star Chamber in 1999, with godlike power. That went in the biggest research ever conducted in global history on testing centers across Australia in every prison system. And they found a lot of people going back in the primal state and found the cure of the human ignition that's going to save humanity. I wasn't the only one. It's my product, right? And 113 people arrested with the same product on every testing center across Australia that went in every prison system and analysation reports with the most powerful truth serum in the world. My arresting officer and 40 cops commends me and retires the police force. And my case is the most corrupt case in Australian history declared by Chief Justice of Jersey. And Tony Abbott got wind of this, the mind control weapon that we designed and the freedom we designed with the DNA studies done. He does a mandatory urine test. He does a mandatory urine test and proves it. That everyone's controlled by the same mind control. Then Peter Dutton pulls him down as well on the immigration issue. When he's ordered to step down by Chief Justice of Jersey. Then he unlawfully deports me. Then he sits at Home Minister at Home Affairs and he decriminalised the drug. Peter Dutton decriminalised the drug at Home Affairs. Do you understand that? How nefarious controls the world? Because it's important you know this. In Australia, the Natural Justice Act prevails. And Australia's in breach of more than 400 human rights natural justice acts. The Natural Justice Act under the House of Lords, a universal law in treason, right, on more than 400 levels for court jargon, right, through manipulation in DNA studies done. In Denmark, the Nordic father nation, the Western European colonization, UN and NATO, every country in Denmark and the Nordic is in breach of the Human Rights Commission under the Act, under the Natural Justice Act, under your body cells, under your DNA, the Book of Life. They're in treason because they put your body cells in corruption, coercion, illusion when you go to school to be programmed and you need into a death spiral, into suffering, to create the whole marketing strategy. Prama, anything they live on. It's all corruption, right? It's all manifestation with court jargon, which is spellbound. Spellbound they use in courtrooms, right, with manipulation. And the whole courtrooms and the whole court jargon, taxes, anything you go to jail for, and lawyers under a bar association are committing treasoning and extortion to create the marketing strategy. They put your body such a corruption, collusion, treasoning, so people can't function, and they take the kids off parents, like the Royal Commission in Australia, been paying over 23 years, they take them off the parents, going home, they can rape them bash, so they become prisoners and prostitutes later. And it's the cops and politicians and teachers and pastors and preachers that rapes your kids. Look at the Royal Commission. It's the same species that you go to school to mentally resonate with, to be mentally seduced, to have faith in. So by the time you're 24 and they come to your front door, they can manipulate you and technically explain to me they're okay. And your best friends or your best mate or your best uncle, right, is the best liar in the world, who's probably raised kids all his life and you wouldn't know. That's how bunch they lie. And they'll tell you they're a pastor or a teacher. And they're that good, they never get busted. They only catch 5%. People in the underground world, they catch 97%. And 84% of them also plead guilty with moral guilt and shame, because they're ashamed of themselves and plead guilty. But no child sex offender ever does. They never plead guilty. They're a species in denial, complete denial. Governments and authorities under the UN is a complete species in denial, living a high IQ with brain deformity. 125 plus IQ is brain deformity, declared worldwide. And they select people 165 to 185 IQ with the worst brain deformity. You know, they call them nutty and crazy professors for a reason, because they're nuts, they're crazy. And the whole system where every scholar in the world is set up with treasoning, with brain deformity, with the highest IQ people in the world, with competitive tools for education to compete and go through the scholars in universities with the highest IQ, and they pick the highest IQ for law and order and prosecutors. That's where they select 165 plus IQ. For law and order and prosecutors the most, and the top signers. But they're the most critical for law and order, with the worst brain deformity trapped in their mind without moral guilt and shame. When they go to, right, the police academies, they often get put out because their moral standards, moral values stand in the way. Then they put them out with mental disorders. And when a cop goes against the system, when he knows there's corruption, he's always ordered to step down. And they put him out with mental disorders. They do it non-stop. I go in my book to a lot of cops and a lot of politicians that went in my favour and was ordered to step down. Ordered to step down. 40 cops were ordered to step down in my case. They went on my side. 40 cops and politicians and ombudsmen also ordered to step down. And Peter Dutton, Tony Abbott himself, when he did the Mara urine test, they set up a structure on immigration issues to pull him down as well. And the same with Chief Justice of Jersey, the biggest judge on the bench, where he declared my cases in every university is the most corrupt cases in Australian history. So you understand the system, you know, when Denmark breached 570 human rights laws under the House of Lords, under the Natural Justice Act, a Human Rights Commission, right? It's only a body of the House of Lords under the Natural Justice Act, a universal law under your first act, your own sovereignty. That's a universal law that no country in any country in the world can override, but every country under the UN does. And in 1999, when I went to the Star Chamber inquiry, I shut the case down. The National Commonwealth, the Federal Police went to Parliament House to seek authority to unleash the biggest think tank in the world, the Star Chamber inquiry, and I get them for treasoning with their introduction to me. And they had to shut the case down for treasoning because they stole all the taxpayers' money, right, from 1980 to 2008 and broke your banks. You were flourishing with money. No one had to work in more than 20 hours a week by 220, and no one ever sold a property again. That's how much money you have. They did an act of transfer, right, with the UN. That's why every country in the world, the richest country in the world, owns one bank. Why do they own money to the richest bank in the world? Why does every richest country, even Australia and America, owe money, and China, to a bank, the worldbank.org under the UN, under NATO? You mean WF, the World Bank Dog, you mean the bank that happens to be paying out the black Aboriginals today for the stolen big generation $250 billion? Not Australia, but worldbank.org. For what? For culling. They killed all their parents, culling, for treasoning. They killed 15 million in the Mayan jungles. They killed all the Aboriginals in Africa, took them in slavery. They killed all the 24th chromosome in America and put them in slavery and made black people grow their food for them. Hitler wanted to do an ethnic cull, and the ethnic cull is happening right now. Everybody knows for a fact, right now there's an ethnic cull where vaccinations are damaging all the ethnic culls the worst, right? Set up for this ethnic cull that Harari says he's going to create Hitler's plan. Hitler's plan was to save blonde hair, blue eyes, the Anunnakis, the Nordic Father Nations, the tribe of Dan, and they reversed people's psychology with a fake dogma in 1920 to invert your placebo effect, and it worked perfectly in 98.7% with artificial intelligence and evolution mutation. It worked perfectly to invert your placebo effect in your biology, in your DNA with corruption, gross collusion in your biology. And you go to school, so you get possessed by a voice in your mind that controls you, that you give consent to, without even realizing it. And they're only personalities that will tell you whatever you want to hear, whatever you want to live in your comfort zone, tell you whatever you want, but you will do as you're told at the same time. Because when you have your back up against the wall, you're controlled by stress, fear, and anxiety in your body cells. You're controlled by stress, fear, and anxiety. And you die prematurely from stress, fear, and anxiety. Never freedom, never from natural age, because you can live to be 1,000. We know that for a fact. You can live to be 1,000 with all your natural motor skills, all your natural selection to do what Christ can. And like everybody could, before Babylon. That's right. We're getting all our abilities back, right? The Bible tells you that. We know that with DNA. Where Jeremy gives us the biggest study ever done, because we have them. And we're not lying to you. We're real. We're the real deal. The rest is artificial. And they care about themselves and making videos to make a name for themselves. They don't care about nothing but themselves. And their opinions is all they care about. Their own narrative. And they don't know what they're doing. Worldwide. Trapped in a screen all day. Artificial human beings, not connected to life, connected to a radio wave and possessed to the shithouse with addictions and non-natural selection, and don't believe it at the same time. They have 600 to 7,000 defected genes in every Westerner, living in denial, right? With their own ancestors and tools in denial, like their parents who are crazy. Now they're twice as crazy, and they don't believe in it. Why didn't they suffer? Stress, fear, and anxiety, confusion, frustration, delusion, paranoia, and live in a comfort zone, and don't know what they're doing, and lie about it every day, and think they know, and think they're truthless, and think they're away from amnesia and the reincarnation trap, when they can't even use their selections. They can't use metals 11 ESP, remote viewing, telekinesis, levitation, spoon bending, clock winding, folding space with time with deja vu to predict the future. And people will never. They can't use the sixth sense with a third eye, with vision that tells you 1,000 words cannot lie to you, with dimensional thinking, the portal that takes you into the future, with remote viewing and deja vu. They can't use it. They cannot use the lie and talk grammar, but they can't use it in real life. Not in reality. Because they live in a personality with mentality on anti-clockwise and come to their own conclusion with reasoning, like a robot, to fact-check Google themselves like an idiot. And they have no idea what they're doing. Until they cross over and use 100% of their brain and master their whole vessel from the outside in, instead of the inside out being trapped in the mind. Spirituality is reality. Mentality is personality. Spirituality is reality. Mentality is a personality. And when you wake up to that, you'll know. Until then, you know nothing about yourself because you're limited. Look at the movie Limitless. Look at the drug we developed. So you use 100% of your brain with a vortex of information with 7-fold wisdom and knowledge, a universal power to write a book overnight that's brilliant, to go down to Wall Street and make millions of dollars. And they wouldn't want you to know that, would they? Of course they wouldn't. So you can predict the future and prevent what's going to happen? Of course they wouldn't want you to know that, because then they can't control you with mind control, can they? On anti-clockwise, and trap you in your mind to believe you know better when you don't. When you lie to yourself and live in denial. Into a vessel, into a human experience with a personality where you're controlled by your own personality, with your own mentality, without even realizing it. Without even realizing it with deja vu. Sorry, with amnesia, how would you know? How would you know? Until you cross over, you'll never know. Take the red pill, you can't go back, because you can't go back when you cross over. And that's the time you're saved back in your primal state and you know. And until then, you know nothing. You only think you do, but you don't. Your mind controls you and limits you so much. That's why Christ said you're a dead corpse. Your bodily will be 1 to 5%. When you cross over, it's 100%, man. It's a clarification. It's high as a kite. And it's your power back. Your divine power to command nature. And trust me, you can't get it fucking wrong. Because I have it. I'm living it. You got to release shit in this world, man, and understand the world's under mind control. We exposed that in 97. You declared crazy worldwide in 99 and species in 2003. And do you think you know? Denmark just shut down, right, the Human Rights Acts in Denmark, right? Okay? The Natural Justice Act, the Natural Sovereignty Act, the Universal Law, the Natural Justice Act. They shut down because it's on the front page of the paper. They were breaching 570 human rights laws under the Natural Justice Act, 570. America, 700, right? The UN's breaching them all over the world, under every UN country, and taking all the money with worldbank.org. Every bit of surplus is in their bank. That's why they're paying the Aboriginals $250 billion. And that's an act of guilt of treason. When they take the taxpayers' money of every country, and every country owes them money. How's that possible? It's set up and designed by the elite, by the people that run this world, the Anunnakis, the Western European colonization, the Nordic part of the nations. And they're not fucking humans. They are only vessels with personalities. They have no moral, guilt, and shame. They have no care factor. They wouldn't know what it is. They have no family values. They deceive people with deceptions through every single law and order documents, with chaos, and put everybody under duress, because the biggest killer in the world is putting food on the table, a shirt in the back, and a roof over your head, and stress, fear, and anxiety in your body cells, corruption, collusion, escalating out of control with mental disorders, DNVs, and cancer and tuberculosis rates, while they implement new laws and new conditions every single day. New taxes, new conditions, more laws, more regulations, out of fucking control with treason, because they're possessed by an alien invasion that has no moral, guilt, and shame, by a personality that controls the whole world in 98.7%. That's now controlling the whole world with mind control. And if you don't believe in that, then you'll never know. And if you never know, you never know. But you're not in spirituality. You're trapped in mentality in yourself. And you don't even realize it. And 90% of you, 95% has been declared beyond the point of return. We can no longer change mankind from the way he thinks and judges. He's artificial, and he's evolving in the 23rd chromosome, declared by FDA and the top scholars of the world. He keeps evolving in the 23rd chromosome, and it's 24 in dormancy. He can't use any natural selection or natural abilities at all. His biofields are collapsed, 27 senses, and 85 to 93% of his brain has been brainwashed and can't work. And we break you free from this, from every single thing you suffer and die from prematurely, to go in a natural selection and natural order, and a natural selection takes place with the most powerful confirmation that you will ever have, with the most powerful influence you've ever felt in your reality, when you release your mind and cross back in your primal state, in your innocence, in your selflessness. Believe me, we know. And that's why Julian Assange got locked up. That's why Edward Snowden is still in hiding, because they exposed the biggest mind control, right, and soul trap in human history. And we hacked the hub, and I served 10 years in jail for this, to save humanity. And they stopped my book in 2004 with 66 court orders. And I'm primordial being number one, the biggest mastermind in the world that unraveled the whole system, on the front page of the paper, 1992. King Vice, 17 current affairs shows a mastermind of loopholes of laws and a mastermind manipulation on 7 powerful documents. I can do things no one can, and I unraveled the whole system under UN and NATO by the Rockefellers on chaos in your bodies, chasing corruption, collusion during the daytime, all by design. So you die prematurely from a reincarnation trap and keep coming back like an idiot and don't even know, with evolution, mutation, and artificial intelligence. And believe me, I'm right and the world is wrong. And you have to understand that. I'm right and the whole world is wrong. Okay? Only a handful of people know this. With Jeremy Givers, the book Freedom by Jeremy Givers, held by 16,000 scholars of the world, the holy bread of life, and we're not breathing bread again, the holy bread of life, the crossover to save humanity from every single thing they suffer from, the human conditioning, Baal, nefarious, controls everyone in the world, Satan, the Antichrist, however you want to look at it, it doesn't matter. It controls your mind with a personality that will tell you whatever you believe in. The greatest delusional dajjal in human history, the pretender. He pretends to be Christ. He pretends to be loving in a Christ consciousness and deceives you so much you have no idea. And he's got every human being in a comfort zone, believing their own truth and tells them whatever they want to believe in. And they believe it themselves, trapped into themselves. The greatest deception ever created in human history. And very few people is going to cross over and wake up from this, from amnesia and the reincarnation trap again, a new timeline with sevenfold wisdom, a new era where everything's going to be perfect. No more pain, stress and fear. No more confusion, frustration, delusion and paranoia. No more mental disorders, no more suffering as the rest of the world goes into a sixth mass extinction, stripped from the sixth sense for the sixth time. And believe me, 227 is the deadline. If you don't cross over, then you go beyond the point of return. The rest goes in extinction. We create heaven on earth. Believe it or not.